our video.
Move the camera off a little bit. Look all foggy.
Here we go. Are we live?
We live? Yeah, we're live.
We're live. Are we live on
Yeah.
everything?
Live on everything. We're live, baby. We're live. Things. We got Instagram, TikTok,
Okay.
Facebook, and
YouTube.
YouTube. We got them all. We got them all. Hey, what's up, everybody? So, welcome to KTC Shop Chat Talk. Chat Talk.
Yeah.
Whatever
It's
you want.
October 24th. We're here. This is like our 5th or 6th episode. It's pretty cool. It's been pretty fun doing this every Thursday. Glad
Yeah.
those of you that join us. Tonight we're gonna let Miss Amanda take it over. She's got some gripes that she wants to get out there. So we're gonna discuss some stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, everyone. Take it. He was going to say take it.
Take
Take it away, Amanda.
Okay. Well, hey, everyone. Obviously, I'm Amanda. I am a tattoo artist and a piercer here at Knoxville Tattoo Collective, in case you didn't know. If you've been here, you know. Anyways, so what we're going to talk about today, actually, is we mentioned it in our last little talk, is we're going to talk about piercing studios versus tattoo shops that pierce. And the reason why I thought it was a good idea is because I've seen a lot of people on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, you know, all social medias that are talking about this. So I thought it'd be fun for us to talk about it too. Also some things that I want to touch on just as a piercer in a tattoo shop. So yeah, I think we'll start first with like the different vibes that you get from like a piercing studio versus a tattoo shop. And then, yeah, so in a tattoo shop where you're doing piercings, generally, obviously, other people are getting tattooed. And it's not just focused on piercings. A lot of tattoo shops, though, do generally have a piercing section. You know, or like a piercing room.
Yeah.
Even if there's multiple piercers there, they all share that room. It's kind of like a community thing. Obviously, in a piercing studio, it's only piercing, and there's normally like booths. Sometimes I've seen it set up like a hair salon, you know, where they literally have like booths, like out, not bullpen booths, like nothing separating them.
Oh, did you open?
Yeah, in the open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Like,
that.
I know what you're talking.
I think that's called sticks. I think that's what it's called, and I could be 100% wrong. You could be, and you can fact check me, obviously. But I'm pretty sure it's called sticks, and they have it like that. It's kind of like open. It's really interesting. I like. Obviously, they have a private room for private piercings and things like that.
Tattoo studio?
No, that is a piercing
Yeah.
studio.
Sticks.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Do great piercing, really great piercings. So obviously there's like a different vibe. Have you ever been, Rachel, have you ever been in a piercing studio?
I don't think so, honestly.
Okay.
I don't think
Have you ever been in a piercing studio?
I've never been in a studio with straight piercing.
Okay, I've been in one in DC. I do not remember the name. Had beautiful selections, things like that. My cousins got their ears pierced there. It was a great experience. My aunt paid a crazy amount to have that done. And at the time I was like, that's wild, because like 6 months ago I got my second lobes done and it was $45 a clearance, bro. What are you doing? You know, like that's kind of how I felt. But it was a very high-end studio.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was really, really nice.
I can picture it from what like clients have, because we've had a lot of clients go to like piercing studios to get pierced, you know?
Right.
And they have told me things about it. So from what I can imagine,
Yeah, and it stays, I mean, it's pretty nice. And then the other thing that I noticed with the difference between tattoo studios and piercing studios is the cost. So that is something also that I think that like it's good to discuss. So like at a piercing studio, you generally have, from my understanding and from what I can remember and what I see, you know, when I look up things, is you have a standard piercing cost, which is the time for the piercer and that they're spending and their knowledge and experience. And that's depending on the piercing. Generally, they have a flat rate. Some don't adjust that rate. Some of it's like $40 to $60. You know, I'm just giving you basic ranges. And then you have a jewelry fee on top of that. And that can be from their standard, which I think most standard places would say for a tattoo. For us, it's a little bit different. But what I see standard is about $45 to $50 standard.
In a piercing
In a
studio.
piercing studio is their standard, and that's titanium grade jewelry. No
Good
extra
quality.
diamond. It's still good. It's great quality. Great quality. And then on top of that, you normally have aftercare that you pay. That's not included in the cost, obviously, and you want to have that aftercare, especially if they're promoting a certain way for their piercings to heal. You know.
Yeah.
So when you go to a piercing studio, really, you're not necessarily paying a huge amount of money for the actual piercing.
Correct.
What you're paying for is the aftercare and the jewelry that you're getting.
Correct. That's where you see it. And because I mean, you see the jewelry from, you know, the standard, like I said, like $45. And then you see it go up as much as $300, $400 for a piece. Like we were talking about, like you want a gold piece with actual diamonds in there, you're going to pay a little bit of money for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that it is a fair price, and other times I don't think it's fair. You see a lot in the industry, what I see, even as like it's marketed like this, if you look at some of these bigger companies, that they're getting it at a wholesale price and they're charging at 300%.
Right,
Upcharging it a lot of money. And I understand, you know, you've got to make some profit off of this and you're making an investment, but like, what do you think is a fair upcharge on?
Oh man, you know, that's a tough one because I guess it comes down to how you're purchasing the jewelry.
Okay.
If you're purchasing each piece individually, then I can understand, you know, maybe like and it's just throwing out there a 50 to 75 upcharge on the jewelry.
Okay.
The difference though with like a tattoo studio is usually with our studio, especially, you know, when you come in to get a piercing, we're including the price of your jewelry in there.
Right.
We're also not buying solid gold. We're not getting real diamonds.
Correct.
We can get that. We have access to that stuff. It's just not cost effective to keep that in stock when you're not specializing in just piercing.
Right.
So I think that when it comes to these piercing studios, where that's kind of like their main thing is the piercing, they kind of have to upcharge on the jewelry. That's kind of where their money's being made. I don't think their money's being made on the piercing itself.
Right.
You know, unlike with our studios, you know, the tattooing is kind of what pushes our studios forward. We don't really have to rely on piercing. You know, it is nice to have, and it definitely brings a good amount of income extra. But it's, you know, we can get away with still getting. We do titanium jewelry. That's our standard jewelry. So it's not like we're using cheap stainless steel. We're using good jewelry.
Yeah.
But we're not having to upcharge a crazy amount of money for it either.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. And so, Rachel, also you buy a lot of jewelry. Like she's into like the jewelry and things like that. So as a client, like, would you want to go to a place and, you know, look at and you find this beautiful piece of jewelry, and then they're like, okay, so the piece of jewelry itself is $235. What is depending on the jewelry?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on it, honestly.
Okay.
To be quite honest, I probably wouldn't spend that much just because you can get stuff that looks the same, that's like a different type of material, but that's still good, but it looks the same. You know what I mean? So like,
right.
I think if you're looking for a specialized piece of jewelry, and you're going to a place that is custom making this jewelry, it's worth spending the money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if they're making it custom for
going
me.
to a company that also provides a wholesale on their jewelry, that's a different story for me. I'm not going to spend, you know, $200-$300 on one single piece of jewelry when you can buy the wholesale price. You know, and it's like, you know, quarter of that price.
Right, because it costs them $65 for that piece of jewelry.
But if you're going to somebody that specifically creates jewelry, it's definitely worth the money. You know, you just have to do your research to really know where you're buying. I think, especially when it comes to these piercing studios that just specialize in piercing, it's good to do your research on them and find out where they're getting their jewelry from. You know, because it's easy to find out prices of jewelry. Yeah,
it is 100%. You can always, anytime that they have the actual like brand that they use at a piercing studio, you can go to their website. You can look at their client costs, because most of those places actually have your like a client side that you can buy on, not just like a piercer side. There's not as many options. You can't buy like collections generally. You can buy like smaller like ear curations, but you definitely couldn't buy in bulk. Like just, you know, if you were you didn't have a piercing license and you were just trying to buy a bunch of piercing stuff. They don't sell that.
Well, it gives you an idea when you have to buy from those companies retail.
Right.
What they're charging you as
Right.
opposed to buying that same piece at a shop.
That's
Right.
It's
yeah.
an upcharge of
Mhm.
you know, maybe even 300% sometimes.
Right. And, you know, I'm also being exaggerating. Not everyone is at 300%. I
Yeah.
just happened to see one on TikTok that was, and they were saying that that's what they do their jewelry at 300%. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, that is crazy. But also, I understand, I didn't really think about it until you were just saying that. You know, they're not having any other income other than the piercing fee, which that doesn't always go back into the shop, depending on if they're just paying a booth fee, you know, but they're only getting a smaller percentage of that. And they've got to make money after they've invested, because buying a whole set, you know, whenever you open the shop, when you're buying a whole collection of jewelry, you don't really think about it, but it can get very, very pricey, even with just basic jewelry. Our basic jewelry orders, when we're just replenishing and we're not even buying like in bulk, are easily over $300. You know, that's just like small little pieces here and there. I don't think I've had one since I've worked here.
That's really not at all.
And I'm getting barely any. The box is tiny. You know what I mean? Like we've done huge ones. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the markups, and okay. So the other thing that I want to talk about is, because why I really talked about this is I saw online talking about how these piercing studios have they have more experience and more knowledge than tattoo studios that have piercers in their tattoo studios, because they feel like that because you're so much focused on piercing that you have better techniques, you have better, you know, you're just more talented in that. And so that's where it kind of, I was like, okay, I want to talk about this with the public. I want to talk about this because I feel like that, don't get me wrong, I do feel like if you specialize in piercings and that's what you do, you've cultivated your art and you've done a fantastic job. I am not hating on you. You've done a fantastic job, I'm sure, where every piercing is healing perfect, angle is great each time, smooth. Not hating on you. But where did you learn to pierce? Because piercing studios have not been around forever. That's not what has been. And I think that like let me rephrase that. I feel like I want to know, like, originally piercing was in tattoo studios. You didn't ever have these. You didn't really hear, maybe here and there, but it was very uncommon unless it was in a huge city.
Right.
That you had piercing studios. So I think that like saying that just because you have piercing studios, that you've cultivated the art more and that you should be trusted more than someone in a tattoo studio, I think that's false.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, it's like any craft. I mean, if you're continuously learning and evolving with the times, with the techniques and the procedures, it doesn't matter what type of studio you're in. Right? Like, I mean, I learned how to pierce from tattooers and from piercers. So I had gotten knowledge from people that were tattooing and learned how to pierce and had been doing it for a long time. And then when I came to Tennessee, I learned from a master piercer who had been piercing for years and got to get knowledge from him. And then also my own, seek for knowledge and books and doing my own research on different piercings. I think when you're doing stuff like that, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've never been in a piercing studio. Piercing was never my forte. I was always a tattooer first, and I picked up piercing because it was in the studio. It was part of it. It was an extra hustle. It was side income, and I just wanted to be good at that, just like I was tattooing. So learning and knowing was part of it. And I think that's where people fall short is they want to be great at something without putting in the work to get there. So you learn how to do a nose piercing and a belly button. You watch a couple, you do a couple, and all of a sudden now you're a master at Right? And I think that's the problem. Is there's too much of that. But if you go back to it, like like you said, where did it come from? Where did you start? Who taught you? And most of these people, even the soul piercers, at one point probably learned from somebody that tattooed as well.
Right.
So,
or in a tattoo shop. There are so many piercers out there that solely pierce that are in tattoo shops.
oh yeah.
That just solely pierce, have nothing, don't have no idea, or have nothing to do with tattooing, you know?
We've always, in every studio I've worked in my whole career, I've always had somebody that was just a piercer. I mean, this is the only shop that I've had that I didn't have.
A soul piercer, yeah.
You know, everybody that pierces also tattoos.
Also tattoos, yeah. Because that's how I got into piercing, is in order to do like the tattoo apprenticeship, is it came along with it. You had to learn how to pierce and you had to learn how to tattoo simultaneously. Well, excuse me, I'm lying. You learn how to pierce first, and then once you're piercing, and you're comfortable in your piercing, then you move on to tattooing. And it's kind of, you know, like you're still doing a little bit of things, but you're not actually skin. That's where I originally.
That's how it was. Even when I was, you know, doing my apprenticeship back in the day, that's how it was. Like, if you wanted to get in the industry, in the studio, you started off, you know, as your apprenticeship, you started off sweeping and mopping and cleaning and piercing. And once you learn how to pierce and deal with the public and handle all that, then you start moving into tattooing. You know, that was the way it worked. Yeah,
100%. And I think also with you, you know, like when you want to do something, like you want to be great at it, you want to be a master. Yeah, so like even in the beginning, like I learned from tattoo artists. I didn't learn from piercers. We did not have a soul piercer in there. They both were more like, I would say, biker tattoo artists. That's where they came from. So it was just like basic piercings and things like that. So when we did conventions, I took it upon myself to do these different seminars and learn different from actual piercers as well, that were all based out of tattoo shops, you know? So I guess that's where I go. And then kind of to round it up with what I was kind of saying about the differences, I think the general public should know is that when you're looking at like piercings, yes, piercings are very, very important. Having the techniques, having the correct jewelry, being clean in a safe environment, you know, things like that. So when you do your research, just like you do for a piercing studio, you do that also at a tattoo shop, because I definitely understand where some of, you know, the talk is that, you know, there's people just piercing for extra money and they don't really care about it, you know. So you want to know, like, oh, is this piercer good at belly buttons? Have they done 15 that don't necessarily look great when they're posted, you know, or like, oh, my friend went there and it rejected, and then 7 of my other friends went and rejected. Maybe don't go to that, you know, and things like that. Make sure they're using the right jewelry, making sure you don't have allergies yourself, and like your piercers asking those questions. So that was my whole thing.
Always do your research.
Research.
It's important. I mean, there's so many studios now and so many artists and so many piercers. It's so saturated. Like really, it's upon the clients to do their research and find out, you know, hey, how much experience do you have? You know, is it something you're comfortable doing? You know, like all those questions could be asked. You shouldn't be afraid to ask questions to your piercer or your tattoo artist. You know, it's a procedure. It's very invasive. You should have that, you know, right to ask questions and to understand more what's being, you know, done to you. That's one thing. Like I said, doing both tattooing and piercing, I want to know everything I can about both things. And my clients know when they come to me, I educate. I don't just tattoo you or pierce you. I'm trying to explain to you the procedure, what I'm doing, what's going to happen after, and how to handle all that stuff, so that you're not, you know, calling me later and saying, oh, I don't know what to do. You know, this thing's all infected. You know, we try to educate our clients and let them know exactly what's going on and how to handle situations, you know. And we're always open too. If you ever need, as far as communication, if you ever need to get a hold of us, you're always able to get a hold of us on social media, through our phone line, you know. So we're always there to answer your questions and to help you out through whatever problems you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just good to have it. And then, you know, the thing also is that, like you said, we want to know so much about it, is that yes, it is an extra income, but in it, and I said in our last podcast that I'm not passionate about piercing, but obviously you can hear it in me today. I am passionate about piercing and knowing the right thing. I just don't mean that it's my love like tattoo is. I'm still very passionate about being very knowledgeable, making sure, like you said, making sure we're educating and making sure we're doing good piercings. I think that's the other thing is, with that. But yeah, I think either way, if you go with a piercing studio or you go with a tattoo shop, I think as long as you do your research, I think it's good. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the body piercing shops. I think some of them are actually really cute. They have great selection of jewelry. Like we were talking earlier, that tattoo studios generally don't have. You're not going to walk into a tattoo. Well, there are a few, but they're, generally you're not going to walk into them where there's going to be a buttload of different gold options with real diamonds and, emeralds and, this and that and like beautiful things. So,
and normally when you do walk into those, they do have tattooing, but it's mostly piercing. You don't go to those kind of shops.
My hands, I love it. I do. And, and hey, and I'm not a person that, when we were talking about the jewelry costs, I'm not a person that buys like flashy jewelry like that. So I'm not a person that would spend that. But there are people, like watches and things like that. When they're doing that, they want like the top of the line. And I understand that.
Yeah.
So just do your research and find. Also, I think if there's other piercing studios that are here in Knoxville, I don't know, do we have any just straight piercing studios?
Of any straight piercing studios.
If you are out there, you should comment there. Let us know. Let us come. I would love to come check it out and just like kind of see. I would love to. Yeah, we'll give you a shout out. I'll come do a tour. We'll ask some questions. I would love to see it.
Speaking of shout outs, I want to a big shout out to Mr. Larry Mora. Stopped by the studio today. If you guys don't know him, he is the son of Colonel Todd, famous tattooer. Actually tattooed here in Tennessee, in Clarksville, Tennessee, with Bob Shaw. You guys should definitely check him out. He's traveling around right now, selling some flash books of some of the original acetates from Burt Grimm's shop. So if you can catch him here in Knoxville while he's still in town, grab you one of those books. Otherwise, go check him out. Go look up Colonel Todd. He's amazing stories about this guy. He is a true tattooer, tattooed from, I believe, 79 to like 94 or something like that. Just some crazy stories, tattooed with a lot of legends. It was an honor to have him stop by our studio. He looked at some stuff in here. He was really taken back by the shop and how big it was and all the cool shit we have in our education room. So, yeah, definitely look him up. Check out some of his stuff. Old time tattooers, man. We'd love to have the legends come by. Can't wait to see some more. Hope you guys are all out there making money and keeping it rolling. So.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thanks for letting me host tonight. It was super fun.
We'll see you guys again next week.
Yeah.
Remember, this weekend I will be in Pigeon Forge at Jaded Art Collective, banging out bangers with them guys up there, having a good time. They are doing Halloween up there every Saturday. If you come in to get tattooed or come into the shop and wear your Halloween costume, they're giving away boo bags for people wearing costumes. So yeah, if you're in the area, stop by, get you a little banger, check out their claw machine. They got a bunch of cool stuff in there. I'll be dressed like Cheech. So, it's going to be a good time, man. Come check us out.
We'll be here this weekend
These guys will be here
doing Halloween tattoos.
We have our
Halloween flash.
And next weekend we have our $75 flash going on
for Halloween. And then we got the Get What You Get thing is full of Halloween stuff.
Yep.
Friday the 13th tattoos. So
come
down, check it out, get a little banger.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a good night. Be safe out there. Love, peace, chicken grease.
Woo!
Throw it at him.
This guy, someone just messaged in.
On what?
I don't
TikTok or Facebook?